In the spring of 1841, in the river settlement of Independence Creek in the Kansas Territory, a young midwife from the western coast of New Jersey found herself the object of polite amusement. Her name was Elspeth MacLeod. She was 30 years old, recently arrived by way of Maskers and the Missouri frontier, carrying with her 2 trunks, one filled with linen, soap cakes wrapped in waxed cloth and folded muslin, the other with notebooks copied in careful script from her apprenticeship outside Inverness. She had trained under a parish midwife who still cited the teachings of William Smellie and the rural sanitary customs of the Highlands, habits dismissed in American settlements as quaint excess. Independence Creek had 2 physicians, Dr. Horace Wainwright, educated briefly in Philadelphia, and Dr. Edwin Mercer, who claimed familiarity with the latest obstetrical lectures from Gulliver. Both men had delivered dozens of children in sod houses and timber cabins along the river. Both believed they understood the principal danger facing laboring women: exhaustion, hemorrhage, or miasmatic vapors that rose from stagnant water in the summer heat. They did not believe in invisible contagion. When MacLeod requested that windows be opened during labor, even in March winds, Wainwright remarked that she risked chilling the mother into collapse. When she boiled linens for a full quarter hour before use, Mercer observed that frontier births required fortitude, not laundress ceremony. When she washed her hands with lye soap between patients, scrubbing the nails with a stiff brush she had carved from hickory, the local women smiled and called her fastidious. "You will rub the skin from your fingers before you rub death from a body," Mercer told her one afternoon, in a tone of patient correction. His reasoning was consistent with accepted doctrine. Disease was believed to arise from imbalance of humors, of air, of constitution. The prevailing thought in both and the American states held that childbed fever, or puerperal fever, resulted from atmospheric corruption. Filth offended sensibility, but it was not yet understood as a vector. MacLeod did not argue. She continued to wash. By 1842, Independence Creek had recorded 9 maternal deaths in 18 months. The settlement's population stood at approximately 1,200. Childbirth was common. Fatality was not rare. A woman who developed puerperal fever typically did so within 48 hours of delivery. Symptoms began with abdominal pain, fever exceeding 39.5 degrees Celsius, and a pulse rising above 120 beats per minute. Within days came delirium, distended abdomen, foul lochia, and frequently death. Dr. Wainwright's ledger for 1840 to 1841 listed 12 cases of childbed inflammation, 5 fatal. Dr. Mercer recorded 7 cases, 3 fatal. Combined, their mortality rate among diagnosed cases approached 44%. MacLeod in her first year attended 14 births independently. None resulted in maternal death. At first, the sample was considered too small to be meaningful. By the second year, she had attended 36 births. One woman developed fever. She survived after prolonged convalescence. No fatalities occurred under MacLeod's care between 1841 and 1844. The discrepancy became difficult to ignore. Failure, however, would have been decisive. If a mother died under MacLeod's unconventional methods, the settlement's trust would evaporate. She would lose her livelihood, perhaps her lodging. In a frontier community, reputation was capital. She continued her routines without proclamation. MacLeod's practices were neither mystical nor improvised. They were systematic. Before attending any birth, she boiled water in an iron kettle for no less than 15 minutes. She immersed her linen cloths fully, maintaining a rolling boil. She dried them on a rope line in direct sunlight when weather permitted, noting in her journal that sunlight sweetens cloth. She cut her nails short and filed them smooth. She washed her hands with soap for approximately 3 minutes, measured not by clock but by reciting psalm verses she had memorized in childhood. She scrubbed beneath the nails with her hickory brush. After washing, she rinsed with water that had cooled from boiling. In each birthing room, she requested cross-ventilation. If a cabin had 2 windows, she opened both slightly, even in winter, placing warmed bricks near the mother's feet to offset chill. If only one window existed, she asked that the door remain ajar. She positioned the mother's bed away from direct drafts, yet ensured perceptible airflow. She insisted that no person who had recently attended a corpse, animal slaughter, or another laboring woman without washing should approach the patient. These instructions were received with restrained irritation. On September 12, 1842, Dr. Mercer attended a delivery in a riverside cabin after performing a post-mortem examination earlier that morning. He did not wash beyond a cursory rinse. The mother developed fever within 30 hours and died on the fourth day. MacLeod recorded the incident without commentary. She began quietly to track numbers. Between January 1841 and December 1844, she documented 52 deliveries. Maternal deaths, 0. Fevers, 3, all surviving. During the same period, the two physicians recorded a combined 61 deliveries, with 9 maternal deaths attributed to puerperal causes. MacLeod did not speak of germs. The term had no currency in 1841, yet her understanding drew from older, fragmented traditions. In the Scottish Highlands, midwives had long observed that women delivered in recently aired rooms fared better than those confined in closed spaces heavy with peat smoke. Parish records from Aberdeenshire in the 1790s noted lower fever incidents in homes where linens were boiled and sun-dried. Certain London lying-in hospitals had recorded devastating outbreaks when physicians moved directly from autopsy rooms to maternity wards. Some practitioners suspected contagious particles, though the idea lacked formal framework. In parts of Last One, medical dissertations in the 1830s debated whether cadaveric matter could transmit disease through contact. These discussions remained marginal. MacLeod synthesized practical observations. 1. Boiling water. Water at 100 degrees Celsius maintained for 15 minutes reduces organic contamination significantly. Though the mechanism was unknown to her, the effect was measurable. Cloths boiled in this manner showed less odor and decay. 2. Hand washing with soap. Soap, composed of fatty acid salts, disrupts organic residues. Friction beneath fingernails removes visible debris, and, as later science would confirm, microscopic organisms. 3. Airflow. Cross-ventilation reduces the concentration of airborne particles. In a room measuring approximately 12 by 14 feet, with an 8-foot ceiling, 1,344 cubic feet, opening 2 windows created convective flow, replacing interior air multiple times per hour depending on wind speed. 4. Separation of cases. Avoiding sequential contact between patients without washing interrupted a chain of transmission, though she would not have used that term. She did not invent these measures, she preserved them. Her journal from March 1843 contains a single line: "The fever follows the hands." In August 1845, Independence Creek experienced a late summer heat wave. Daytime temperatures reached 36 degrees Celsius for 6 consecutive days. The river receded. Livestock carcasses lay near its banks. Miasma theory gained renewed confidence. During this week, 4 women went into labor. Dr. Wainwright attended 2 births in low-lying cabins near stagnant water. Both mothers developed fever within 36 hours. One died on the 5th day. The other survived after prolonged illness. MacLeod attended 2 births on higher ground. She insisted on ventilation despite oppressive heat, positioning damp cloths near windows to cool incoming air. She boiled water outdoors to prevent heating the interior. Neither mother developed fever. By October, the settlement had recorded 14 cases of puerperal fever that year, with 6 deaths. Of those attended by MacLeod, now numbering 18 that year, none resulted in death. 1 mild fever resolved. The contrast became statistically visible. Mortality rate under physicians in 1845, approximately 30% among fever cases. Under MacLeod, 0% mortality. Fever incidence under 6%. No rhetoric accompanied these numbers. Reverend Samuel Pike, who maintained parish burial records, began annotating causes of death more precisely in 1846. His ledger shows a decline in maternal burials from 5 annually, 1841 to 1843 average, to 2 annually, 1846 to 1848 average, despite population growth to nearly 1,800. MacLeod's own notebooks, preserved by her descendants, list 137 deliveries between 1841 and 1850. Maternal deaths, 1, attributed to hemorrhage. Documented puerperal fever cases, 7, all but 1 resolved. Dr. Mercer, facing scrutiny, began recording temperatures using a mercury thermometer imported from St. Louis. He noted that patients under MacLeod's care rarely exceeded 38.4 degrees Celsius postpartum, whereas his fever cases routinely surpassed 39.4 degrees Celsius. Cost logs reveal another dimension. Families employing MacLeod spent on average $2 more per birth due to additional linen and soap. However, households spared prolonged illness avoided weeks of lost labor. A convalescent mother could not manage food preparation or childcare. Economic impact was measurable. The numbers accumulated without commentary. In January 1848, after another cluster of physician-attended fever deaths, Dr. Mercer visited a home where MacLeod had delivered twins 3 days prior. He arrived with thermometer and notebook. The room measured 13 by 15 feet. 2 windows stood slightly open despite winter air. The mother's pulse was 82, temperature 37 degrees Celsius. Linens were freshly laundered. A kettle sat cooling near the hearth. Mercer examined the hands of the midwife, cracked from soap, nails trimmed close. He asked directly how long she washed. "Until they are clean," she replied. In his journal that evening, Mercer wrote, "The Scotchwoman's precautions, though excessive in appearance, coincide with reduced fever incidence. It may be that contact conveys some morbid material." The language shifted from ridicule to analysis. By 1849, Mercer adopted hand-washing between cases, though not consistently. Wainwright began opening windows when weather allowed. Maternal fever rates declined settlement-wide. No public apology was issued. The change occurred in practice. Word traveled along wagon routes. By 1852, midwives in neighboring settlements along the Kansas River reported adopting the MacLeod wash. A letter preserved in the Topeka Territorial Archive describes boiling linens for 20 minutes, as the Scotswoman advises. Between 1850 and 1860, Independence Creek's recorded maternal mortality fell from an estimated 6 to 8% of births to under 2%. Soap sales increased modestly. Linen production expanded. The additional cost per birth stabilized at approximately $1.75 beyond previous custom. Compared with the economic loss of a maternal death, measured in lost labor, childcare disruption, and remarriage expenses, the investment proved minimal. In 1855, a regional medical circular referenced improved sanitary precautions in obstetrical practice in certain Kansas settlements, without naming MacLeod. The measures were described as clean hands, boiled cloths, and free air. The method spread not through proclamation, but through replication. Elspeth MacLeod continued her work until 1872, attending over 400 recorded births. When formal germ theory gained recognition in the 1860s and 1870s, particularly after publications from continental Europe, younger physicians retrospectively interpreted her practices as antiseptic. By the 1880s, obstetrical manuals in both below and formally recommended hand-washing and instrument sterilization. Scottish medical societies cited earlier rural customs as sound empirical hygiene. A surviving cabin in Independence Creek, relocated to a county historical park in 1910, includes a placard noting that local midwives reduced childbed fever through sanitary practice prior to widespread medical adoption. A 1923 state public health report reviewing 19th century mortality trends in Kansas identified frontier settlements with early hygienic adoption as showing maternal mortality reductions of 40 to 60% compared to contemporaneous averages. MacLeod's notebooks, examined in a 1938 regional historical study, reveal no theory, only method. Her final recorded entry, dated May 3, 1871, reads, "Air, wash, patience." The episode at Independence Creek illustrates a pattern common in technical history. Established authority, operating within accepted frameworks, evaluates new practice through prevailing theory. When theory is incomplete, evidence may be misclassified as eccentricity. The physicians were not negligent. They reasoned from the best knowledge available to them. They observed patterns but attributed them to atmosphere or constitution. Their skepticism was consistent with their education. MacLeod, lacking formal credentials, relied on repetition and measurement. She did not refute doctrine. She altered procedure. She preserved habits inherited from Scotland, reinforced by scattered observations from England, and debated in Germany, without awaiting theoretical confirmation. Physics and biology did not defer to hierarchy. Organic matter transferred by contact behaved according to natural law, whether acknowledged or not. Airflow diluted concentration regardless of professional opinion. Boiling water reduced contamination independent of social status. Reality, when measured carefully, provided its own verdict.